Hello, and welcome to a crustaceous episode of the Drywall Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Harmon. With us today, Ryan Glass of Smooth as Glass Drywall from Northern Maine. Ryan and I dive into his early experience in the restaurant industry as a chef, and we also discuss his transition from being a chef to a painter and finally getting into the drywall trade.
So I'm not going to pretend like I did all the right things because trust me, when I made the split there, it's not like I initially just went off and started my own business. Like I was looking for someone to hire me. And at the time, there was no one hired, or at least no one willing to take me on. So I probably reached out to 5 other crews in the area, and all of them were either not hiring or didn't have enough business to take me on.
We talk about business, we talk about pricing, but we also get heavy into talking about the tools. He also busts some direct questions for me about Fresco Harmony during this interview. The month of August on the Drywall Podcast is brought to you by the Drywall Supply Yard in Montrose, Colorado. They carry Fresco Harmony and they're awesome. If you're in Colorado, Montrose, go check those guys out. If you are interested in sponsoring one of the months of the Drywall Podcast, you can get in touch with me directly at info@frescoharmony.com to discuss. The Drywall Podcast was also brought to you by Fresco Harmony, making walls better since 2004. New episodes of the Drywall Podcast can be listened to every Friday on your favorite platforms such as Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and also YouTube. But for now, Ryan Glass on the 62nd episode of the Drywall Podcast. Let's get into it. Ryan Glass will he'll hit me up on social and be like, dude, I want to tell my story. I want to be on the Drywall Podcast.
Yeah. I've listened to a bunch of them, man. I love hearing other people's stories.
Cool. Do you have any ones that stand out that you really liked?
I love it was the Kayla one.
Okay.
What was it? Kyle Herbert, was it?
Yeah, the honky tonk taper.
Yeah, the one where he's talking about CSR and everything.
Yeah, he's talking trash.
I thought it was kind of funny how candid he was being.
Yeah, he was being candid. The trash talk episode. Yeah, I like it when I like that, I'm not like, individual companies sponsor particular months of the Drywall Podcast. We give them shout outs. We do a little plug at the beginning and the end, but I don't care. I feel like you're going to get more value if people are coming on here and, saying how they feel and not really being tempered by, level 5's paying me money, to talk about this tool that I use once in a video and never use again. That to me, that has zero value to it. It has monetary value to the person, but I don't know. I'm coming in hot, Ryan.
Oh man. So you've got to explain some of this harmonies. Fresco Harmony stuff, because I was looking, even watching a couple of the videos, I didn't quite understand what it was or how it worked.
Let's establish some ground rules here. Ryan, you messaged me on Instagram, right? And you were like, "Hey man, how do I get on the podcast?" I was like, "Done, you're on." Or maybe
really surprised.
You responded to something. I don't really have too much of a filter unless it's like somebody that's not in the trade. I wouldn't interview a DIYer that's done, drywall once. Although we've had some newbies, those are fine. I like the newbies; those are really fun interviews. But I like to dive into how many years have you been? Well, do you run your own company or do you work for somebody?
I run my own company.
Okay, and that's Smooth as Glass, which is a great name. How long have you ran your own company?
So I've run my own company for 4 years now,
Okay.
with a
That's
lot of bumps in the road.
Yeah, that's pretty new. We'll talk about that. And where are you out of?
Maine.
Maine, that's right. No,
Might
who
as
do
well
we
be
have?
Canada to everyone else.
May as well be a Canadian, another northerner. We just had Elise, whose episode drops tomorrow, from New Brunswick, right above you guys. Now,
Yeah.
she was claiming that they're like the lobster capital, but I mean, I've always heard Maine lobster. Do you guys have like do you have a little rivalry there? Who's got the better lobster?
Well, ironically, I used to be a chef doing seafood, and that was constantly a bitter point of contention with
Okay,
lobsters and whatnot.
give me the truth. I want the truth.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, Maine holds that title.
Okay, all right. Shots fired.
From my understanding, like the majority of lobsters gets transferred to New Brunswick, not the other way around. And then they also get
Ooh.
cross country to the West Coast because most people don't know this, but lobsters on the West Coast don't have claws. So that's the reason why they
Okay.
get shipped from the East Coast over to the West Coast.
So the lobsters maybe from the West Coast, you've got a like they're just used they'll package that meat and ship it out.
Yeah.
But you don't get the main lobster in the tank with the claws that have the rubber bands like
Yeah.
that you get to pick out. Okay. All right. So you heard it here first from Ryan Glass. He's a chef. He's from Maine. He says that Maine lobsters are better than New Brunswick. Although New Brunswick, I think she just said they have like some type of saying or title, like home of the biggest lobster or the best
I'd
lobster.
love to see the trademark on that.
Okay, I'll have to re-listen to the interview. So the interview drops tomorrow, so tune in. By the time this airs, Elise's interview will have been out. It's episode number 60. You're going to be 61. That's
Yeah.
awesome. 4 years. How long in the trade total?
6, maybe 7, if you count my part-time summers.
Okay, and how old are you?
35.
And were you first generation drywaller?
Yes. I've got plenty of family members that are like in the construction business,
Okay.
but they're all out of the game now. And I never really stuck my hand into it at all. I got into kitchens, never left it, and wish I had done it much sooner. I don't know
Okay.
how many people that say they want to go from a kitchen to drywalling, but that's how that
Yeah.
ended.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking a little bit about that with Elise. Like in my experience, the salty journeymen were like, don't get into this trade, kid. Save yourself a lot of misery. And I was always like, well, I kind of like the mud. This trade doesn't bother me. I didn't even mind the sanding too much. It catered to my artistic sensibilities. It wasn't that big a deal. I didn't mind. It was, and I think that's why I sort of gravitated towards mud to begin with, was because like I liked it. It was like, oh, I could do this all day. Sure.
Yeah.
Make a paycheck, whatever. Cool. So, but before we get into drywall, you got into this culinary world. How did you get into that?
Well, first, I really wouldn't even call myself a chef. I was probably more apt to being a short order line cook. I mean,
Okay.
I worked in plenty of restaurants, some of them high end, some of them low end, but I certainly would never call myself a chef. And a lot of them
Okay.
get upset when you haven't gone through the proper procedures for it. But as far as cooking goes, I mean, I started in one of the most basic restaurants you could get your hands on, which was Denny's at the time.
Okay.
So I don't. Do you have Denny's out where you're at?
Oh yeah. I never go there.
Good call.
I have a
Good
little
call.
better. I have better standards than that, but yes, we do have debt. We do have Denny's. Hey, and no shame. If you go to Denny's, no shame, man. But I'm a bit of a food snob. I'm picky eater, but I like good food.
Nothing wrong with that.
No,
No.
no.
But yeah, I started out at Denny's and I was there for a few years. And luckily, I found someone kind of took me under their wing in Bar Harbor, which is like a really well known tourist place in Maine. And once I got there, I started getting into more upscale restaurants to work in. And after a few years, I was running my own kitchens.
Okay.
But it was one of those things where I never developed anything that I thought I was really good at.
Okay.
So when I got into kitchen work, I finally like felt like I had something that I was really, really good at, and I could say that I was better than most people at, and I never wanted to let that go, which is why I stayed in it for so long.
Okay. You had an
Yeah.
affinity for cooking. Now, just for the layman like myself, I might have a sensitive palate, but like and I cook, but what it would be the difference between a short order cook and so I guess there's different levels to get to chefery. Like,
Yeah.
you watched The Bear probably, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you enjoy The Bear?
Yeah.
The show. It's pretty good. So
They
that
do
would
a pretty good
depict
job.
they do a pretty good job. And so that depicts maybe and if you haven't seen The Bear, it's about a high-end restaurant, especially getting into season 2. Very good show. I recommend it. And it's a porthole into the world of restaurant tier, and being a cook in a high-end restaurant. So just in your words, what's the difference between these? How many levels are there and what are the differences?
I think one of the definitive parts about being either a short order line cook or a chef is when you walk into a restaurant, they tend to have like set menus. Like there's only these items, you cook all these items, and you have to do it within a certain amount of time.
Okay.
Whereas if you're a genuine chef, you're generally in a much more upscale restaurant where time is not necessarily the issue. It's more about like creativity. So
Okay.
your menu is constantly changing, usually with the seasons or events or whatnot. So you get to create your own meals, things like that. There's
Okay.
much more detail that goes into it. So
Okay.
I never really got into that. I wasn't like creating my own menus and things like that. It was just more like they gave me a menu. I had to create a proficient system to execute it on the line. And that was pretty much it.
Okay. Now at your house, are you the cook? You're like, wife, get out of the kitchen. I'm gonna cook. Just you can do the dishes, maybe. I cook, you do the dishes. Or do you have her be sous chef? How does that work?
Uh, Nowadays, I want nothing to do with cooking. If I can avoid it, if I
Okay.
can avoid it, I avoid it at all costs. I want
All
nothing to do
right.
with it.
You've been tainted. Too much cookery.
It started out with like a really strong love, and then ended with a bitter hate.
Jeez Louise. Cool. So are you married?
No,
No.
so not
Okay.
married and no kids. Don't ask me
No
how that
kids.
happened.
Okay. Do you have a girlfriend?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. Swinging single. All right. You heard it here. Ryan Glass, single and looking to mingle
Just need
on
to
the
get
pod.
my Tinder name up there on the board sometime.
Are you doing like the online dating stuff?
No, I
Okay.
honestly I don't think I would even bother right now.
I've heard that's how people are doing it now. I don't I haven't, but I've heard that's like the predominant dating method is like online. That's how you
Yeah.
find your special person. Like, why do they always call everybody chef? I think it's a little redundant and ridiculous. Do they do that in high-end restaurants? Like, yes, chef, no chef.
Yeah, it's more of a respect thing.
It's a respect thing. Okay.
Or anyone that's not a chef will tell you it's an ego thing. You're stroking the chef's ego. That's all you're
Okay.
basically doing.
And in the design world, it reminds me of design and decorator. So designers have architectural and stability, like they have training and degrees and shit like that. Decorator is like picks colors, and so be careful with that. Be careful with decorators calling themselves designers, and a designer would never call themselves a decorator. Fun fact. And I could be wrong there. You can email me at info@frescoharmony.com if I'm wrong or whatever, but that's just what I've known. And if you are working with a designer, because as you're going to get into Fresco Harmony, I'll sell you on it here in a second. But like, as you get into that, you might get to work with designers, and they're picking colors and they're super picky and all that stuff. And you may work with decorators as well. I've ran into both: good decorators, good designers, bad decorators, bad designers. So that's neither here nor there. So you're in the restaurant world. You're like, I can't do this anymore. How in the world did you make that jump from restaurant to drywall?
So it really wasn't much of a conscious decision. It was just more like luck of the draw. One of the other cooks that I used to work with, he was getting out of the game, and he ended up getting a job with a pretty well-known painter in the area.
Okay.
So I just happened to be crossing by him on the sidewalk one day. He already knew I wanted out, asked me if I wanted a job. I said, yep. Finished out that season cooking, and ended up getting on a painting crew. So
okay,
drywall wasn't even necessarily the first thing. So the way he had it was he had a.
Wait a second. Are you telling me you started as a dirty painter?
I know. I'm gonna get a bunch of hell for it.
I feel like we shouldn't even allow you on the show, but we're already this far in. I'm glad you kept it. I'm glad you kept it quiet until now. So that's good though. You painted for how long?
2 years.
Okay.
So I worked for him for 2 years, but he kind of had his crew split between painters and drywallers. So I did painting for the first few months, and then I get my first taste of doing drywall. He did a lot of like hotel work. So I don't know if you've ever had to do that, but it sucks. The very first experience you get with it is you have to level 5 over like 100+ rooms so that they can put the wallpaper up. So top to bottom skin coats in over 100 rooms.
Wallpaper is like my nemesis. Can't stand this stuff.
I had a buddy trying to convince me to learn how to do it, and I don't want anything to do with it. It looks like just one giant headache.
Yeah, I go over it with Fresco Harmony, which is like a definite rule breaker, but I've gone over it a bunch, covered it up. Yeah, which I get lots of flack over, but there's other people now. I think it's becoming more predominant, especially with Fibofuse. You can use Fibofuse, you can use Red Guard primers and shit. You don't even deal with like pulling that stuff off. Just like prep it, mud over it, go on about your life. It's just horrible.
Yeah. So I got a really hard start.
Yeah, kind of. You went on a rocky road there through painting, but you probably gleaned a lot of good information from painting that you could apply then to drywall to make your drywall finishing better. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you learned about flashing pretty much right from the get-go, and you can spot that out real quick.
Yeah. Very cool. So you started to do drywall with that company. What was the name of that company?
A-Team Painting.
Okay. And that was out of what town in Maine? Is that Bar Harbor?
Yeah.
Cool. Did they have the A-Team logo with like, did everybody had to have a mohawk with the sideburn beard? Like BA?
No, we didn't really have any clothing, but that would have been nice. His logo sort of looked like the A-Team logo, like you would expect, but not quite.
You're kind of young. You're on the cusp of even knowing what the A-Team is. Like, but the quintessential A-Team was a show from the 80s with Mr. T and a couple other like these characters that ran around in a van. And Mr. T had sideburns, and there was even a cartoon. There was a A-Team cartoon for a little while. That was pretty cool.
I wouldn't pretend like I know exactly all about the A-Team, but I've certainly seen a few episodes.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Ones. Not the new movie, not that crap. I'm talking about the old style A-Team.
Yeah, the old A-Team with the van, with the black van.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember. I think I'm aware of the new A Team. I may have watched part of it, but it like, it didn't hold the candle to the nostalgia and like the A Team that I grew up with. But nonetheless, there's probably a million A Teams out there. You worked for A Team Painting. And what was the segue from the painting to the drywall? Did one day you go to your boss and be like, dude, I'm done painting. I just want to do drywall.
Well, like I said, I mean, he had the crews kind of split, and then once he put me on drywall and realized I was competent enough to actually handle a pan and knife, I mean, we almost exclusively did drywall, me and one other guy. So we'd walk in, do all the drywall work, and then the other half of the crew would walk in and paint right behind us.
Okay.
So that's how that started.
All right. All right. Cool. And then, yeah, it's hard for a business owner to release those reins to let somebody learn drywall. You can put an apprentice on painting, but as far as drywall, that's an investment from a business standpoint. As you now know, you invest in people. Maybe they're going to show up, maybe they don't. You spend 2 months training somebody and then they go off on a bender or something. This is one of those trades. But sometimes you train somebody and they work out great, like people I've had on the show. We've got some fantastic, apprentices and new people on the show all the time that are like just love drywall, and they look like they're competent. They'd be great at it. So you were one of these types, but unfortunately too, with those types, they don't last very long. They end up starting their own company, because you can make more money.
Which is kind of what ended up happening.
Yeah, yeah. Now, do you still work though with A Team Painting to do their drywall, but more on a subcontractor basis? How does that work?
No, I mean, when I left the company, it wasn't really. I wouldn't say it was like a really bad split, but I mean, I don't think I really left on the greatest of terms with them.
Okay.
That was just like a internal conflict between me and the other crew, specifically one other person. But
okay, it wasn't like I want to go make more money. I've worn, I've grown out of this company. It was like actually like you had some beef.
Yeah.
Nice. It sounds juicy.
Yeah, there was specifically one other person that just rubbed me the wrong way. I mean,
what did they do?
It was just more like the compulsive lying. Like, I'm sure you've met that person that always has like extraordinary stories that sound out of this world.
Sure.
So they'll always have some extraordinary story, and it's extraordinary story after extraordinary story, and just embellishes everything. And
sure.
It's just that absolutely rubs me the wrong way. So when you can tell someone's like being a compulsive liar and just making up stuff to get attention, I really don't enjoy being around those types of people.
Interesting. I wonder why that rubs you the wrong way so much. I guess I can tolerate it. I guess I can kind of like dismiss maybe reality from somebody's really trying to get a hold of me, but so hey, you're on the Drywall Podcast right now. Is that cool with you?
It's all good.
All right. And hey, you're kind of new to the Fresco Harmony, right?
Yes, sir.
So just say really quick. So let me give a background. These guys are doing a whole house in Fresco Harmony. You'd never heard of Fresco Harmony, right?
I've never heard of it, no.
Okay, so and you're right here in Albuquerque. So I know you're the homeowner. They're building this beautiful custom home, 5,000 square feet, and 10,000. Is it floor footage 10,000?
Oh yeah, you're right. No,
I just get. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, the floor footage is 5,000. You probably have 10,000 wall feet or whatever. You guys are doing the drywall. What's the name of your company?
Alliance Paving.
Okay, paving.
Yeah.
So are you guys more pavers or are you more drywallers?
We do all construction. Basically.
All right, you guys are kind of jack of all trades. Yeah. So you're jumping on this Fresco. What do you think? Give me your first impression of it, and then I'll let you go.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Cool.
It's a really nice finish. and the color looks amazing.
Cool. And then hopefully we're gonna do we're gonna do that whole house if I can keep selling it for you guys. All right, cool. Thanks, bud.
All right.
All right, bye. Sorry about that.
Got to run the podcast and the business at the same time.
Good question, though. It's kind of fun to have hey, we got a caller. Got a caller coming in. Even though they're not calling in for the podcast, it's just a work call.
You just need to start doing them live and make sure, then try to get callers in.
It's fun to pretend. We just crossed over 10,000 downloads on Podbeam, which is pretty cool.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So it's growing a little bit. And this is kind of taken, it's been cool because I've been promoting Fresco Harmony and this is sort of taken it. But what were we talking about before we got rudely interrupted?
I know about splitting from the 18.
We're a little bit of a breakup there. You had a coworker that was maybe exaggerates, likes to exaggerate.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he did anything intentionally, just rubbed me the wrong way, just incompatible.
Fair enough.
That's all.
Okay, so you've got, at that point, how much drywall experience do you have?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
So that's pretty ballsy to go, I'm going to start my own company after only 2 years.
So I'm not going to pretend like I did all the right things because trust me, when I made the split there, it's not like I initially just went off and started my own business. Like I was looking for someone to hire me. And at the time, there was no one hiring, or at least no one willing to take me on. So I probably reached out to 5 other crews in the area, and all of them were either not hiring or didn't have enough business to take me on.
Okay.
And starting the business wasn't even in my mind to start, but I got a side job. The family member had said something to someone.
Yeah.
And it was 2 jobs. It was that one. And the guy that I bought my truck off of at the time was a contractor.
Okay.
He had a job.
So you saw some juicy coin early on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So the business was not even supposed to be a thing. Just one contractor gave me a shot because he heard I knew how to do drywall, and I was pretty upfront with him that I had only had 2 years experience, and he said done. And so at that point, you probably had a fair amount of tools. You had enough to did you have a banjo? So I really didn't have a whole lot of tools. I had one of each. I had a 5, a 6, a 10, 12, and 2 pans. That was about it. Yeah. Okay. I remember
any scaffold. Did you have any scaffold?
No. Nope.
Okay.
I had a couple of benches.
Stilts?
Yes, I did have a pair of stilts. Yeah, I was working with a bare minimum, but as soon as he gave me a chance, I probably did the dumbest thing I could have done, but in the long haul, it worked out. I think I maxed out 3 of my credit cards going out to buy more tools.
Okay. Well, that's investing. That's not, that's smart.
Yeah. I didn't have any money to my name at the time. So
yeah, that's early entrepreneurial mindset right there. It's like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to, focus on this and make some more and make more money. But you didn't have jobs rolling in. I mean, that's got to be a little nerve wracking, but you are single with no kids. So that does make it easier. How did you drum up work early on?
Early on, the area that I live in is really word of mouth. And I want to say the first year I struggled. I think I made less money that first year than I did cooking. I either made about the same or less. So that very first year was really, really rough.
Yeah, mine too. My first 10 years.
I wasn't even looking to I wasn't even looking to continue on with it because it was so rough. I was looking for other avenues. I was looking into going into
carpentry. Okay. Carpentry seems cool. Of the trades, I see those carpenter dudes out there with their nail guns and their tool belts. It's like, I could do that. I could hang with those dudes for sure.
I thought about being an electrician, but I'm not a prima donna. So
no. And you're probably too clean. You probably clean up after yourself, so that wouldn't have worked.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
not.
so 30, around 33 years young at that point in time, you just how does the work start coming in?
Uh, I could probably contribute a good chunk to like one contractor.
Okay.
So he had just lost his drywaller that had been with him for a long time. Just
Okay.
someone that got out of the game was getting too old for it.
Okay.
And he I think he had like 4 or 5 houses lined up one after another.
Okay.
And at this point I had brought my brother-in-law on to be a partner because I couldn't handle the workload, and B, 7 days a week was killing me at the time. But
Okay.
he was probably one of the biggest saving graces. So when he came in, that contractor gave us the first house, which was almost 400 sheets that we hung and finished by ourselves.
Oh, that's a fatty. Yeah. That'll you'll skin your teeth on a house like that.
Yeah, I almost lost my shirt on that house.
Why?
I didn't know anything about pricing that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
That
you're
was
like
like,
a you see like, 20 grand sounds like a lot of money, and then it's like, materials burn up all your profit, and you're on the job for 4 months, and you're like, I only made 5 grand in 4 months,
yeah,
whatever. You
that's
start
one of
doing the
those things.
math, and you're like, I only made $5 an hour on this job. Yeah.
No, that was the reason why I said at the beginning, like I strongly do not suggest going into business for yourself the way I did.
Well, I mean, though you have to learn, and there is no school that teaches you. There's business classes, but until you get out there and you bust your ass and you like figure it out, I think really that's the only way to do it. I mean, maybe don't bite off a 400 sheet house, maybe do some patches and stuff, but I think that's a great way to learn. So
Yeah.
not only did your education get paid for on that project, so, you say you lose your shirt. I mean, did you actually lose money on that job?
No, I probably broke about as even as I possibly could have.
Okay, so early on, the way that I would look at a job like that is like, oh, I got paid for 2 months of like education. Like
Yeah.
like like I didn't pay a cent, and I got all that education that there's no school in the world you would learn that from. And then the
Yeah.
next job, it's like, oh, the next job, I'll make 10 grand because I know what I'm doing now. It's that easy, but you had to have that job, man. That job was your saving grace.
No, like I'm glad I went through the fire to learn
Yeah.
everything that I did learn for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was trying to absorb all the knowledge I could from like any of the Facebook pages and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But it seems to be pricing is like one of those things where everyone just doesn't want to tell you a damn thing.
It's kind of stupid. I mean, we should all like I'm so important that I can't tell you what I charge, I know it varies from area to area. People look down their nose at what we charge down here, but I mean, it's different for like square footage. Somebody's like, oh, what do you charge for drywall? It's like, well, are you doing it hourly? Is the guy covering material cost? Are they supplying the materials and you're just getting a percentage rate to finish? Is it hang, finish, and texture? Am I just
There's too many
getting,
variables.
yeah, am I just getting 30 cents a square foot for hanging, I mean, or finishing, one of these three aspects of it. Yeah, there's a lot of variables. I don't know. It's interesting, and it does change from region to region. I think, you know, I think as a community, we should probably, if somebody's got a question about square footage, hey man, I got this popcorn ceiling. We're on a remodel. How do you guys bid this shit? We shouldn't get mad about that. It's like, if you're experienced, tell them how to fucking bid the job so that we can all
One of the things I
benefit.
really, yeah, one of the things I never really understood about that too is when you ask that, they say if you got to ask, you need to go back and learn more. Even when you're working on someone else's crew, that's not something they're going to tell you. It's their business. They're not going to be like, oh, by the way, this is how I'm charging for my jobs. It's like one of those things you got to learn by trial by fire.
Yeah, and you're in Maine. Like, I don't give a shit what you charge up there. I'm in Albuquerque. It's not like you're my direct competitor. We're on social media. There's people all over the globe, we can easily share knowledge and information. If somebody's in your area and they're calling you on the phone asking you your pricing, well, that's different, but it's all a little silly. There's some ego there as well,
Yeah.
much like the restaurant industry, or any industry probably, egos tend to prevail, so you've got some knowledge. Any experience with the tools, like the automatic tools?
So pretty much every automatic tool I taught myself.
Beautiful.
No one taught me. Yeah, no one taught me how to use the compound tubes, the flat boxes, the bazooka. I think the only automatic tools I haven't really touched much of is the angle heads or the flushers.
Okay. And you're hanging your own jobs now, or do you sub that out?
No, I still hang my own jobs.
Nice. And do you like hanging your own jobs?
Yes.
Because
so I just prefer that we do it. We know how it's going to get done. You know what I mean?
And those price points that are factored in there. And you're young. You can, your body can take the heat, and you got a partner. So that helps, man. You guys can probably crank out a house pretty quick.
Yeah. Probably put up 80 to 100 sheets in a day on a good day.
What kind of screw gun do you use?
Milwaukee.
You like Milwaukee? And then do you use the ribbon of, have you tried doing that?
Yeah, I don't like.
You don't like them because that's like a European thing. The dudes in Europe, that's all they use, man. And they think the Americans are weird because we don't use pneumatic. Is that what it's called? Pneumatic or
auto feeders?
Auto feeder, I guess. Yeah, they think we're weird for loading them one at a time.
Not to mention, like each container of screws is like $60 for a container, and it's only like a quarter of the screws that you get in a box.
Okay. But you feel like that does not equate to the time savings. It seems like there's a ton of time savings, though.
Yeah, look, I'm not like knocking it for the person that does use it or trying to say that it's not useful. It is for someone that prefers it. Absolutely, I'm sure they could waste me as far as screwing off a sheet goes.
Okay, all right. So I mean, admittedly, it's probably a little quicker. Now, is this a situation where you've just never really vetted that system out?
Yeah, I probably haven't vetted it out enough. I used it on two different jobs, and when you got to get into like the inside corners with the screw gun, you always got to take the auto feeder off in order to get into the
okay. All right. Interesting. I didn't do a lot of hanging in my career, but that's just kind of an interesting, weird aspect of hanging where I'm like, oh, it seems like the auto feeder would be quicker. I wonder why they don't use that. Is it stubbornness? Is it, is it like, oh, because, well, it doesn't get everywhere you need to get with the screw gun, people have their different opinions. And so
I'd say a good portion is probably stubbornness on my part.
And so let's talk taping. Which bazooka do you have?
So I have the Columbia Predator.
Okay.
And I'm still learning to use it.
Okay. Cool.
I know exactly how valuable it is to learn it.
Yeah.
But and I'm sure everyone else can vouch for this. Every job feels like you're on a deadline from hell and you're just trying to get it done as quickly as possible and you don't have time to learn something else.
All right. So do you fall back on like maybe the banjo or old techniques because you're like, I don't have time to pull that thing out?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So
interesting. That's it. That's interesting to me. Because I ran the banjo. I got fast with the bazooka. But to me, there was no other way than to go through the challenge of learning the bazooka because I was making 12 cents a square foot finishing. And the dude, yeah. 8 cents. Man. I'm sorry, 8 cents. I was making 8 cents in Sierra Vista finishing, taking it from drywall to ready to texture. And myself. And the bazooka was the only tool that I didn't know how to operate efficiently at all. And I ran it a little bit, enough to be dangerous. And I learned that fucker. Like it took like 4 or 5 houses. But like, if you committed to just using the bazooka on your next 5 houses, no matter what the time frame, you'd have it.
Yeah. I would never.
And then you'd be like, you would never put that thing, you would never like go back to the old way again.
Yeah.
Like guaranteed.
There's only like, I think there's only like 2 other guys in my area that run automatic taping tools. So to learn it would definitely be an advantage.
Cool. And then so you've got the tape on. What do you use for your angles?
So right now we use the compound tube with the mud applicator.
Okay.
So I have a level 5 compound tube and then 2 Columbia compound tubes. So we use that to apply the mud, and then we hand tape all the corners in.
Oh,
and then we can roll them and wipe them out. Yeah.
Like from the ground.
Yep.
You'd be blown and going. We'll come up there. We'll have to have Aaron come up there. I'll come up there. Just for no other reason than I would love to play with the Predator and tape out one of your houses for you. That'd be fun.
If I could find someone to come up and teach me how to use it, I would pay him happily.
Okay, all right, you heard it here, man. It'd be fun. And then use a box tool then. So you do like 10, 12, 12, 14. And which boxes are you running?
So we run 10, 12, and 14. I have the box of misfit tools. I have a little bit of everything. I've had the platinum boxes, Columbia boxes, and now I have all 3 set of the Tape Tech Power Assist boxes.
Okay. I mean, which ones do you like?
Begrudgingly, I really had a hard time with the Power Assist boxes, but now that I've gotten like the hang of them and all the tips and tricks with it, I'll never go back to a regular box again. So I love the Tape Tech Power Assist boxes.
What does that mean? What are you even saying? Powerless? Powerless? What are you saying?
Power Assist.
Power Assist. That is direct feed boxes?
So it's basically a normal flat box.
Okay.
But the way they've done it, the legs are spring loaded so that there's a hook that's pressing down on the lid. So instead of you having to put so much pressure on the lid on your walls or on the ceilings, this is helping you press into the box.
Okay, probably better for if you're running flats off of stilts.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Neat. But there was a little learning curve there.
Yeah, one of the downfalls of the Power Assist box is whenever you're running off of a joint, it's still pressing on the lid. So it'll have overflow coming out of the box.
Okay.
So with a regular box, when you run off a joint, like it stops the second you pull pressure off the lid.
Yeah. Yeah.
With a Power Assist, that's not the case. Like it gets an extra second of pressure on it. So in order to stop that, you have to click the lid back once as you come off the joint.
Okay. A little bit of a learning deal. And that's a Tape Tech tool, huh?
Yeah.
Power Assist. Cool.
I didn't even know about Power Assist boxes until last year.
This has been a pretty good conversation, Ryan.
Thanks, man.
Not too bad, buddy.
I was a little nervous in the beginning.
Yeah. I take it for granted now, just like Fresco Harmony or anything. But when I first started doing them, I was nervous. It's like, I've gotten really good at talking to people, but way better at listening. I still talk over people, which I'm trying to work on. But that's kind of the flow. That's my style. And there's no pre-questions, dude. This is all notes on the conversation. Like your friend that comes up with like all this pre shit. It's like, so wait, are those Fresco Harmony questions that you have?
A couple of them are. A lot of it is just kind of like bulletins on what to talk about. So
neat.
My mind like rattles all over the place.
You had an agenda. we haven't touched on anything you wanted to talk about.
That's not true. There's been a couple things.
We touched on a couple things. We did, though. We're getting down to maybe 12 minutes, 15 minutes or so. Now Ryan had not heard about Fresco Harmony. You know very little about Fresco Harmony. You had some questions and I was like, ooh, wait, save them. And you can ask me on the podcast and I'll answer like questions as best as I can. So you're curious about this weird Fresco Harmony system. How much knowledge do you have, first of all, about it?
Very limited. So I remember watching some videos on it.
Okay.
I want to say a little over a year ago.
Okay.
But it was basic. I think it was just basically you applying it, but it never really got into details about what exactly it was.
Okay.
Or the process of which to finish it off. So all I saw was you with colorful mud putting it on the walls, and I'm like, isn't that just plaster?
Okay. So your initial thought was like, oh, he's just using plaster, like a plaster material?
We're using plaster, but I mean, like, it just reminded me of like a plaster method.
Yeah. So maybe you were like, why would you use the joint compound? Why don't you just use plaster if you're going to do that? Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So to answer that question, it was because I did a plaster project when I was in Colorado, and that led to the inception of this idea. And I hated the plaster so much that I invented Fresco Harmony, because it was so laborious and it was so expensive and the colors were really challenging to get. And it took multiple people. So to do one small lid, my boss was like, he was mixing like the Swedish chef, and he had like powders and pigments and they were flying all over the place. So he's mixing up these batches and you've got like two people applying this medium and it's taken forever. And you have these little teeny trowels. And then there's this dude coming behind and is burnishing and it takes all day to do one ceiling. And I'm like, at the time we were doing full ceilings with what we called the Adobe texture, a pool trowel. And then we'd float the whole ceiling with like lightning bolt design, really subtle texture. We wouldn't finish the angles. And I was like, couldn't you just put color into the mud? I was doing art with color and mud at the time. And I was like, couldn't you just put the color into the mud and run this like texture and paint and texture at the same time?
Yeah.
Like that was kind of the original thought. And then immediately I was like, well, you have to get multicolored because plaster is like multicolored. Well, I didn't know it depended on the fashion in which you put the medium on the wall. And then also there was the barrier of it's not plaster, so it has to be sealed. Like I had to figure that out also.
Yeah.
So, and then immediately too, I had to figure out how to consistently color each batch. And not only that, I had to figure out how to communicate the color. So it's like, well, what colors do you have? It's like, so I had to like match colors to paint swatches early on. And I had to formulate color per box of mud. So that's an interesting aspect. So Fresco Harmony is an 8-ounce formulated color pack for one box of mud based on a 3.5-gallon box of mud, just like paint. So
is the color pack liquid or is it a powder?
No, it's a liquid. So this is Martinez Storm, and then we have 16-ounce double color packs too. That are like heavy duty color. It's like twice the price, but like 10 times as much color. It's like they're formulated because if I'm doing 10,000 square feet, I have to have perfect color every time. So right away, the all-purpose joint compound started to show itself as a very not only is it like more cost efficient than plaster, it's just efficient. You put a lid on it, come back tomorrow, it's still there. Yeah. I can patch with it. I can put a nail in it. Like, these walls are all fresco, like you can put sand in it and make it look like micro cement, like, and so a lot of that came from the art. I've been playing with color and mud for like several years. I was an artist with color joint compound and, making art and stuff. And so that's kind of how it started. So I was an artist and then you had drywall, and I was like, oh, you could, I would much rather do fancy wall finishes. This was not in the radar. I was like, oh, I'm just going to do fancy walls for people with color joint compound and make money. Like, that was,
You
that
were
was
carving out like a niche thing for yourself.
yeah, I was like, oh, this is cool. I can go into people's homes and make neat walls, and like I can go over existing painted texture, like no problem. So that's where it came from. That was kind of the zygote original idea. And I mean, where you guys benefit is you'll get a color pack, but I send out like, bam. So now all of a sudden I can take a sample of the product. I can hand it to a builder and be like, dude, check this out. I'll do a free wall for you on the next house. See how you like it. It's going to look like this. Looks exactly like the sample. If you do it properly, the builder loves it. And now all of a sudden you're making an extra 5,000 on every job doing like just accent walls and headboard walls. As a painter, I mean, you're familiar with like feature walls, like it's a thing. In a hotel, if you did one accent wall in every room in a hotel, you would rake.
Yeah.
So the whole idea has evolved.
So when you do like the application process, is it like normal drywall? Like I got to come back and put 2-3 coats over it, or is it a one-off type thing?
No, it's like 3 coats no matter what. There's a base coat that's heavier. It's textural. Yeah. So that's covering up my butts and bands. Level 3 drywall, no sanding. You can go right over that. And then you have a tight second coat. So the second coat is a skim coat. And you keep that abstract. Your line's abstract because that's part of the look. And that's where you get the dimensionality of the mud. The mud in that instance is acting like plaster, where how you apply it creates the two-tone effect. And then when you put the sealer on, the sealer acts like wet sanding. It's thick, like a yogurt. It's like a clear,
like a thick epoxy.
Yeah, it's like acrylic, like thick acrylic. So if you order a sample pack, you'll get one of these, and it's enough to do like 50 square feet, and you get a color pack, and you can mix and make a sample or do a whole wall. If you do a wall, you want to buy like a quart of sealer. But this is a custom color. It's 22 on the website. You can get it through CSR though. Regular colors are 17. Prices might be going up very soon, but like a quart of sealers, like, $30 or whatever, that'll do 200 square feet. But this is satin, comes in satin and gloss. But this, it's like thick. It's goopy.
How do you apply that then? Because that looks like it's much thicker than regular mud.
It's thick, yeah. It's like, a pan and knife or a hawk and trowel.
Huh.
And so when you're troweling it on, it compresses that mud and just makes it smooth as a baby's butt. Looks like plaster.
Makes it as smooth as glass?
Yeah.
You've
heard it. You've heard it.
Get it in one time.
Maybe if you did 2 coats, but I mean, it's people's inclination is to feel it, when they walk into a room or whatever. Yeah. It's it's not bulletproof. It's probably softer than plaster, but it's hyper repairable, and you can redo a wall. It's mud, it's joint compound. So the uniqueness was that nobody had ever developed a system to color joint compound consistently from batch to batch. This is the first in the world.
I'm glad I'm coming across it, because I came across are you familiar with Never Miss?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that mud tinting stuff. I came across that, and I was just like dumbfounded and excited. I found it for patchwork and everything like that.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, that's more niche, where it's like, okay, it's the same concept. You're tinting the mud, but that is just like so you can see your patches. This is like, this is like Never Miss on steroids. I mean, this is like, it's not even the same. You could take this bottle and put a couple of drips in a pan, and this would last you for 10 years using it in the same capacity as Never Miss. It's color. This is pure.
You're trying to put them out of business. I see.
No, no, and I don't like to talk badly about, and I wouldn't say they're even a competitor, but I think it's snake oil. I think if you can do the same thing with chalkline chalk, then what are you
Yeah.
selling me?
Yeah.
Legitimately, what are you selling me? Or if I can get a jar of pigment that lasts me 20 years, well, that's not a very good market. That's not a very good
Business model.
a business model for a product that sits on the shelf, that you only need one bottle a year.
Yeah.
This is a much better business model because I mean, on a project you'll use, I mean, that dude that I just talked to on the phone, out of the gate, he bought 20 color packs and 4 gallons of sealer, and he ain't even gonna touch what it's gonna take for that house. But they're learning the product, and that's a lot of footage out of the gate for a company like that. They're going to struggle a little bit. There's another company in town that does Fresco Harmony that he bid that same job $50K, and the painting bid was $25K. So you back out that painting bid, now you're only like at $25K to Fresco Harmony a whole house with a company that's reputable and could do a good job. I was like, dude, you should have taken that deal. Like, that's not very much to trowel your house out 3 times, and they're spraying the base coat. Like, so they're doing a method with sand, with a sanded second coated, looks like micro cement, just like this wall here. This wall's sanded.
Yeah, I can see some texture in it.
Yep. So they're doing a finish where they do the sanded base coat or non-sanded base coat. They spray it out, like fog the wall with a sprayer, and then they go into the sand second coat and they seal it. It's like the dudes will like blow out a house in 9 days. Like, that's unheard of. So this is fast forward 20 years. This is what I'm working on now. And then we just got into England. So those dudes are going crazy for it over there.
I was about to say that'd probably be a great market for something like that. A lot of the old style buildings over there.
Yeah, it never occurred to me, but they're doing a lot of plaster as well. It's just something to offer other than plaster, or paint and texture, or paint and smooth finish. It's just something cool that you could offer your clients. That's, you could upcharge, $4 a square foot, whatever you're charging for hang finish texture, double it. That's what you charge for Fresco. Yeah, it's kind of interesting stuff. But if you're inclined, Ryan, I'll send you a link, and this goes for anybody out there. I'll send, we have a sample pack request link. You fill it out, and I send you a color chart, a color pack, a little bit of sealer, and you can play around, mix up a batch, play around with it. If you're really interested, go online, figure out a color that you like, order it, and just do a wall in your house, and you'll be like, "Oh, this is awesome! I'm gonna."
I think that's probably what I'm gonna end up doing.
I'm gonna like sell this to the builders that I work with and show them a sample and be like, "Dude, you can pick any color, and we'll make your wall look like that." It's, builders love it because it sets them apart from other contractors, other builders, because now they have a plaster finish. They've got an applicator, Ryan Glass, and they can produce this and upcharge their clients.
Yeah.
Walls, there's nothing in this space, and drywall, you're limited to doing drywall, and you're competing with every Tom, Dick, and Harry in your area, for the lowest price. Well, this just gives you like a leg up. This is now, nobody in your area is doing it,
Yeah. I think the only thing that's separated us apart so far is that we'll take on the challenging jobs. Like I said, a lot of the guys around here do production work and whatnot. So we tend to do a lot of the custom work, like Z shadow beads around baseboards, windows, doors, and curved staircases, stuff like that.
That stuff's cool too. And we did, there's a video called The Venetian Corner on YouTube where I did a whole house in step bowl from Trimtex and decorative reveal bead. and we match painted. So I'll put all the match paint into a rattle can, although you could run it through a sprayer, and you spray all your corner bead and then mask it off and do all your flats in Fresco Harmony. There's a whole video on it. It's pretty cool. We did all the trim around the door is all step return around all the doors, and then we did 350 step on the windows, and then 3/4 step on all the large stand-ups. Smoking whole house. Like, and I mean, I didn't bid that one well. I think I was at like $250 a square foot for hang finish, like all of it, and because I wanted the experience, I wanted to like try it out, and it was quite an experience. But that specialty corner bead, it's hard to sell, and people aren't really selling it.
Yeah,
it's kind of a bummer.
I carry a Trimtex sample pack around with me with like all the special beads on it,
like chamfer, all that stuff.
Yeah. So like when I get a hold of the Fresco Harmony and I actually try to go through the system or whatnot, that'll be the same thing. That'll probably be carried around with me too. That way I have something to showcase for it.
That's how you sell it. I mean, these builders and contractors and designers, they have no idea it exists, and a lot of drywall dudes don't want to put it on because it starts affecting their bottom line, and they don't know, man. It's like, you upcharge it, dude. You charge an extra 10 grand on the house. They want like, specialty corner bead all over the place. It's like, well, you get, I'll figure out a price point that works. You're cutting out the trim guy, because now you're doing this like decorative trim around your windows and stuff, and then you're doing this like beautiful finish on the walls. There's an extra, $2 a square foot or whatever, but back out your paint, back out your texture, because now your texture and your painting bid is getting consumed into the Fresco Harmony. That's kind of the idea. It's a new way of thinking about walls and what we do as a profession. It's like, I feel like we're cutting ourselves short a little bit, like there's so much more we could be doing.
When I hear about a lot of guys, what they charge, it sounds like a lot of people in the drywall industry are cutting themselves short financially. And it just hurts to hear it sometimes. Yeah.
And that's okay. And that's where, as a community, we go on and be like, hey, man, you should be charging more, dude, in your area. And plus, if you're getting that price point, man, you don't want to work for that guy. And they're probably beating him up on top of it. They get those.
Yeah,
it's pretty tough. It's tough, especially.
They survive.
Yeah. And I mean, all the subs, I feel like, get beat up by the GCs a lot.
It does a number on your body, like if for nothing else, it does a number on your body, so you should be charging accordingly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that hanging, man. I feel like the subcontractors with drywall end up graduating to subbing out the hanging, eventually that's the progression for you. It's like you find yourself a hanging crew, and then you guys just finish behind. Cool. Ryan Glass, smooth as glass. What is your pearl of wisdom for the drywall community? You've had some good ones, but if you could put something on a billboard, what would it be?
I'm not sure if it fit on a billboard, but I would say if you're getting into the drywall, this goes for the younger guys just getting into it.
Okay.
I'm training 2 guys right now, and what I try to explain to them is the first 6 months of learning to mud, you're going to hate drywall. But the second you learn how to do it, you're going to love it. So stick it out. Stick it out.
I love it. This is to the newbies, man. It's when you learn how to float that corner bead, to me was always like, that was the, I loved running corner bead. It was cool, man. There's something really artistic about it, and you can get good at it where you're leaving it like just flat. You put that knife up there and there's no gap, and your angles, you brush it off a little bit, and it's like, it's perfect, and all that's with mud. When you can learn to do that, there's something really special about it, and gratifying too. So cool. Well, thanks for being on the Drywall Podcast, Ryan. This was a great conversation, man. And I'm glad, you never know.
No, Nick, I appreciate it. It was a good time. I appreciate it.
Cool. Me as well. And I will send you the link. And if I don't send you a link, be like, hey, dude, you were going to send me a free color pack. And then also you're going to get a free color pack in the swag bucket from CSR too. So those cool dudes at CSR are sending out swag buckets with like a 3-way, a tech dry tool, spy sponges, and some other cool stuff from the drywall industry that you guys get to try and use. So
nice.
That's cool as well. Every guest of the Drywall Podcast gets a free swag bucket.
I'm not special.
Cool. Well, we will be in touch and talk soon, but you have a great rest of your day, sir. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a good one, Nick.
All right, bye. Special thanks to Ryan Glass, Smooth as Glass Drywall, for being on the Drywall Podcast today. I appreciate your time, your knowledge. You're awesome. The Drywall Podcast today was brought to you by the Drywall Supply Yard out of Montrose, Colorado, supplying your Colorado needs, especially in Montrose. Those folks also carry Fresco Harmony, which is super awesome. If you are interested in sponsoring 1 month of the Drywall Podcast, you can inquire with me directly at info@frescoharmony.com. Guests of the Drywall Podcast will receive a sweet swag bucket, compliments of our friends at csrbuilding.com. New episodes of the Drywall Podcast can be listened to every Friday on your favorite platforms such as Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and also YouTube. Join us next week when we have Stephen Jenkins, aka Big Dog Drywall, out of Kelowna, BC. That is going to be a fantastic show, but until then, keep drywalling.